Some of the most dangerous places on Earth can never be found on a map. They appear only when they decide they're ready to be found. Legend says there's a boutique that opens its doors only to people whose lives are about to change forever. No one knows its address. No one remembers the street where it stood. But everyone who has ever walked inside has never been the same again. That night, Lee was walking home after another exhausting shift. Cold rain blurred the city lights, and the streets felt strangely deserted. She had worked as a waitress for 5 years. Every night, she dreamed of becoming a fashion designer someday. But dreams had remained exactly that. Dreams. When she reached her apartment floor, she noticed a perfectly black envelope lying outside her door. No stamp, no address, no name. She opened it. Inside was a single invitation card embossed with elegant gold lettering. "We are ready to show you the dress that will change the world." Beneath it appeared one more sentence. "The boutique closes in exactly 60 minutes. Lee laughed quietly. Someone had gone to an unbelievable amount of effort for a very strange prank. She crumpled the invitation and tossed it into the trash. A few seconds later, the lights in her apartment suddenly went out. When the electricity returned, the envelope was back on the table, perfect, untouched, as though it had never been opened. A new message had appeared on the back. "We never send the same invitation twice." A chill ran down Lee's spine. She was absolutely certain those words hadn't been there before. Outside, the rain stopped without warning. Instead of raindrops, soft white flower petals drifted slowly from the sky. Flowers she had never seen before. Her phone lost all signal. Her watch stopped ticking. For one impossible moment, the entire world seemed to freeze. She stepped outside. The city was completely empty. No traffic, no pedestrians, only silence. In the distance, a single street lamp flickered on. Then another. Then another. One by one, they illuminated the empty street, as though guiding someone toward a destination. Without understanding why, Lee followed the lights. A few minutes later, she found herself standing inside a narrow alley she had never noticed before. Between two old brick buildings stood an enormous structure made entirely of black glass. There was no sign, no logo, no name, only a small silver plaque beside the entrance. It contained just 2 words: "Welcome back." Lee froze. The word "back" frightened her more than anything else. She knew with absolute certainty she had never seen this place before. The door slowly opened by itself, as though the boutique had been waiting for her all along. Inside, there was no music, no employees, only an endless gallery stretching into darkness. Hundreds of dresses lined both sides of the hall. White, black, gold, silver. The fabrics looked unlike anything Lee had ever seen. Every dress seemed strangely alive. Their sleeves moved gently, even though the air inside the boutique was perfectly still. At the very center of the gallery stood an ancient bronze bell. Beside it rested a massive leather-bound book filled with blank pages. As Lee stepped closer, the empty pages began filling by themselves. The very first name to appear was hers. Another line slowly formed beneath it. Customer number 913. Lee slammed the book shut. Then she heard a calm woman's voice behind her. "We've been waiting a very long time for you to find your way home again." Lee slowly turned around. Standing behind her was a tall woman dressed entirely in black. She looked no older than 30, but her eyes carried the weight of centuries. "Don't be afraid," the woman said softly. "Everyone who comes here for the first time believes they're dreaming." She paused, "But dreams end. This boutique doesn't." Lee tried to ask who she was. No sound came out. It was as if her voice had simply disappeared. The woman smiled. "Words have no value here. They're far too cheap. We trade in something much more valuable." She slowly swept her hand through the air. At that exact moment, thousands of dresses moved together, as though every one of them had heard her command. Lee suddenly felt hundreds of invisible eyes fixed directly on her. Every dress seemed to be watching, waiting, judging. "Don't choose a dress yourself," the boutique's owner said calmly. "If you do, it will reject you. Then how do I choose one?" The woman answered almost in a whisper. "You don't. It chooses you." Somewhere deep inside the endless gallery, a delicate chime echoed through the silence. One dress swayed gently, then another, then a third. Moments later, everything became perfectly still again. Everything except one. A pure white gown slowly glided forward. No strings, no mannequin, no visible force. It crossed the enormous room as though someone invisible was carrying it. The dress stopped directly in front of Lee. There was no price tag, only a single word. "Where? What happens if I do?" The owner looked straight into her eyes. "Everything." Lee carefully touched the fabric. The instant her fingers made contact, the boutique vanished. She was no longer standing inside a store. She was walking down an enormous fashion runway. Thousands of people were applauding. Camera flashes exploded from every direction. A giant screen lit up with her face. The audience chanted her name, even though, just moments earlier, no one in the world had ever heard it. A television host approached her with a wide smile. "Congratulations. You've just become the most famous woman on Earth." Lee smiled in complete confusion. Nothing made sense, yet somehow, it felt more real than reality itself. Without warning, everything disappeared. She was standing inside the boutique again. The white dress still hung silently before her. "Was that my future?" Lee whispered. The owner slowly shook her head. "No, that was the price." Lee frowned. "The price? But I didn't pay anything." The woman slowly opened the ancient book. A new entry had already appeared. "Payment pending. Every customer says the same thing until they discover what they actually paid with." The owner led Lee toward an enormous antique mirror. It was completely covered with black velvet. There is only one mirror in the entire boutique, and it never reflects the present. The velvet slowly slipped to the floor instead of her own reflection. Lee saw a completely different young woman. She was breathtakingly beautiful, standing alone on the edge of a skyscraper, smiling peacefully. Then she stepped forward. Lee turned away in horror. Who is she? The owner covered the mirror again. The previous owner of that dress. After a long silence, she spoke almost gently. She believed she had nothing to lose. Lee slowly stepped backward. Everything happening around her felt impossible. Yet deep inside, she knew every word the woman had spoken was true. What happened to her? Lee asked quietly. The owner looked toward the white dress. She got everything she'd ever wanted, but she couldn't afford the full price. Can I still leave? For the first time, the woman smiled with genuine sadness. Of course, as long as you haven't worn a dress. Lee turned toward the exit. Then she heard a whisper, soft, almost impossible to notice. It seemed to come from the dresses themselves. Every gown whispered something different. Stay. Choose me. I can give you everything. Thousands of voices, all speaking at once. Lee covered her ears. The whispers didn't stop. Now they were coming from inside her own mind. One of the dresses slowly began changing color. Its white fabric gradually transformed into shimmering gold. Why did it change? Lee asked. The owner answered calmly. Because it felt your desire. What desire? The one you hide, even from yourself. Her entire life flashed before her eyes. The tiny apartment, endless late-night shifts, dreams everyone dismissed, dreams no one had ever believed in. The golden dress slowly drifted closer. A new sentence appeared on its black tag. You will never be poor again. Lee felt her heartbeat quicken. This was exactly what she had always wanted. And the price? The owner said nothing. The tag slowly began writing by itself, letter by letter, word by word. Price, every memory of the person you love most. Lee instantly let go of the dress. The words disappeared, as though they had never existed. That's impossible. For your world, the owner replied quietly. In hours. It's simply another transaction. They continued walking through the endless gallery. Every new dress offered a different life, a different future, a different dream. One promised eternal youth. Another offered absolute power. A third, immortality. But every promise demanded something worse than the last. Years of your life, your happiest childhood memories, the people you love, even your own name. Lee stopped in front of the smallest dress in the boutique. It looked completely ordinary. Plain white fabric. No embroidery. No jewels. Its tag contained only one sentence. You will learn the truth. And what's the price? The owner looked at her for a long moment. Sometimes, the truth is the price. Without warning, the entire boutique trembled. Golden dust drifted from the ceiling. The silence suddenly felt different. For the first time, the owner frowned. No, not yet. Somewhere far beyond the endless gallery, a door slowly opened. Someone else had entered the boutique. Lee turned around. At the opposite end of the enormous hall stood a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 10. She was completely alone. The girl quietly looked across the endless rows of dresses, not with curiosity, but with recognition, as though she had walked through this place many times before. She slowly looked up at Lee, smiled, then spoke so softly it was almost a whisper. "You came back too early." Lee stood frozen. "What do you mean?" "Came back." Lee took another step back. The little girl looked at her with unsettling calm. There was no fear in her eyes, no surprise, only quiet expectation. "Do I know you?" Lee asked, her voice barely steady. The girl tilted her head ever so slightly. "Not yet, but one day. You're the one who brings me here." The owner stepped forward sharply. "Enough. It's too soon." The girl ignored her completely. She never looked away from Lee. "You can already feel it. This boutique remembers you." Without warning, the boutique began growing darker. One by one, the warm lights overhead faded into darkness. For the first time, the boutique itself seemed afraid. The owner slammed the ancient book shut. It didn't matter. The pages continued turning by themselves, faster and faster, as though invisible hands were desperately searching for something. A cold wind swept through the endless gallery. Every dress turned toward Lee at the exact same moment. Thousands of silent witnesses, watching only her. The pages suddenly stopped. The book had opened to a single photograph. Lee's blood ran cold. The woman in the picture was her, but the photograph was impossibly old. Yellowed paper, cracked edges, faded ink, and one date beneath it. 1896. "That's impossible. I wasn't even born." The owner quietly closed her eyes. Everyone says that, until they discover how many times they've already lived their own life. The little girl walked toward the book. She gently placed her hand on the page. The photograph began to move. Lee watched a young woman who looked exactly like her. The same eyes, the same smile, the same face. Only the clothes belonged to another century. The woman entered the very same boutique, signed the book, put on a dress, and disappeared. The next page turned. 1908, the same woman, walking into the boutique once again. Another page. 1919, the same face, the same eyes, another life. Lee could barely breathe. Are those my ancestors? The little girl slowly shook her head. No, it has always been you. The boutique disappeared. The walls dissolved. The floor vanished beneath them. Only endless darkness remained. Then, thousands of doors slowly emerged from the darkness. Each one led to a different human life. The owner finally spoke. The boutique never sold dresses. People invented that part. Then what do you sell? For the first time, the owner smiled sincerely. The chance to live another life. Every dress was never clothing at all. Each one was someone else's destiny. The moment you put it on, you lived an entirely different life. And when that life finally came to an end, You always returned here, remembering absolutely nothing. The little girl walked up to Lee. She held out a perfectly black envelope, exactly like the one that had started everything. Now you understand why your invitation said, "Welcome back." Lee slowly opened the envelope. The letter was gone. Inside, there was only a small silver key. The owner removed an old ring of antique keys from her belt. One key was missing, the exact key now resting in Lee's hand. Every keeper of this boutique was once an ordinary customer. It's time to choose. Walk out that door or become the next keeper. Without saying a word, Lee walked to the entrance. She placed the silver key into the lock, but instead of leaving, she slowly turned the sign on the door. It now read, "Open." At that exact moment, somewhere in another city, beneath the pouring rain, a perfectly black envelope appeared outside someone's front door. Embossed across the front in elegant gold letters were just 5 words. "We've been expecting you."